My name is Ramiro Velasquez, and at 33, I built TechVantage Solutions from nothing into a $50 million company in just 7 years. Then, in one brutal boardroom moment, my own father betrayed me with 5 simple words, and that smile he exchanged with my brother. What they never expected was that I would walk away taking every patent, client relationship, and key executive with me. Before I tell you how I built my company twice, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and subscribe if you want more stories about business betrayals turned into ultimate success. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, the son of Eduardo Velasquez, who immigrated to America with nothing but $20 in his pocket and a dream. By the time I was born, he had established a small construction business that kept our family comfortable but never wealthy. I was the middle child, sandwiched between my older brother James, who had my father's charisma and gift for charming a room, and Thomas, the surprise miracle baby who came along 8 years after me and instantly became the apple of my father's eye. From early on, I had a knack for technology and problem solving that neither of my brothers possessed. While James was winning speech competitions and Thomas was being coddled as the baby of the family, I was taking apart computers and rebuilding them with improvements. My mother, Anna, would smile proudly when I showed her my creations. But my father would just nod absently, his attention already shifting back to whatever James was accomplishing, or whatever cute thing Thomas had done that day. Despite the lack of recognition at home, I excelled academically. I graduated from Northwestern University with honors in engineering, though my father barely made it to the ceremony, arriving late and leaving early for a baseball game with Thomas. I still remember the hollow feeling in my chest when I looked up during the commencement speech and saw 3 empty chairs where my family should have been. They arrived just in time to see me walk across the stage and left immediately after taking one obligatory photo. My passion for manufacturing efficiency software was sparked during a summer internship at Johnson Manufacturing during my junior year of college. I witnessed firsthand how outdated software and inefficient processes were costing companies millions. The production manager would spend hours manually adjusting schedules when equipment broke down or orders changed. I started coding a simple solution on my laptop after hours, and by the end of summer, I had created a basic program that cut his scheduling time by 70%. After graduation, I landed a promising position at TechCore, a major software firm. The salary was excellent, the benefits generous, but after 8 months, I could see my ideas for revolutionary manufacturing software getting lost in corporate bureaucracy. When I told my father I was quitting to start my own company, his reaction was predictable. You want to throw away a secure future to chase some fantasy? This is what happens when your mother and I give you too much freedom, he said over Sunday dinner, speaking about me as if I were not sitting right there at the table. James would never be so foolish, and even Thomas knows better at 16. I quit anyway, cashed out my meager 401 kelvins, maxed out 3 credit cards, and set up shop in my 1-bedroom apartment. TechVantage Solutions began with just me, a vision, and mounting debt. The first year was brutal. I was rejected by 27 potential clients and investors. Many nights I questioned my sanity, staring at my dwindling bank account and mounting credit card statements. My breakthrough came unexpectedly. A small local manufacturer, Bryant Tool and Die, had an emergency when their production scheduling system crashed during their busiest season. Their IT manager had attended college with me and called in desperation. I spent 72 straight hours rebuilding their system and implementing the scheduling algorithm I had been developing. I did it for free, asking only for a testimonial if they were satisfied. They were more than satisfied. The owner, Frank Bryant, was astonished when my solution not only restored their operations, but increased efficiency by 22%. Word spread quickly in the tight-knit manufacturing community. Within 2 months, I had 3 paying clients, then 5, then 12. Family dinners became increasingly uncomfortable as my father continued to dismiss my growing business as a hobby that would soon fail. When it does, he would say, reaching over to ruffle Thomas's hair, there will always be a place for you in Velasquez construction, though you might have to start at the bottom, like everyone else. My mother would squeeze my hand under the table, and later would slip me containers of leftovers with little notes of encouragement. He is proud, even if he cannot show it, she would write. I was never sure if I believed her. The turning point in both my business and personal life came at the Midwest Manufacturing Conference, where I had scraped together enough money for a tiny booth in the farthest corner of the exhibition hall. Most attendees walked past without a glance, but Sophia Martel stopped. She was the operations director for a medium-sized automotive parts supplier and had heard about my work from Bryant Tool and Die. "Show me what you can do," she said, arms crossed, skepticism evident in her sharp green eyes. I gave her my pitch, demonstrating how my software could integrate with their existing systems while dramatically improving efficiency. By the end of my demonstration, her skepticism had transformed into excitement. "This could save us hundreds of thousands a year," she said. "But more importantly, it would solve problems we have been struggling with for a decade." Sophia became both my first major client and, eventually, my wife. She believed in my vision when few others did, and her practical operations experience helped me refine my software to address real-world manufacturing challenges. With Sophia's company as a reference, I secured enough business to rent a small office and hire my first 2 employees. Darius Williams, a brilliant programmer I had known in college, and Layla Patel, an operations expert who had worked for a competitor but saw greater potential in my approach. The 3 of us worked 18-hour days, fueled by cheap pizza and expensive coffee. We slept on office couches more often than in our own beds. For 2 straight years, I reinvested every penny of profit back into development and growth. Our persistence paid off when Regional Manufacturing signed our first $1 million contract for a company-wide implementation. The night we closed that deal, I called my parents, hoping that finally my father would acknowledge what I had built. "That is good news, son," he said, his voice noticeably brighter than usual. "It sounds like you might have a real business after all. You know, Thomas is finishing business school next year. Perhaps you should bring him in when he graduates. He has a real mind for strategy." Even in my moment of triumph, my father found a way to make it about Thomas. I bit back my response and simply said I would consider it. That night, as I looked around our cramped office with its secondhand furniture and whiteboard walls covered in code and diagrams, I realized that no matter what I achieved, my father might never give me the recognition I craved. I would need to find validation elsewhere. By year 3, TechVantage had grown to 15 employees, and our annual revenue hit $5 million. We had moved to a proper office in downtown Chicago, taking up half a floor with actual furniture, and a conference room where we could host clients without embarrassment. More importantly, I had developed a proprietary algorithm that revolutionized production scheduling for manufacturers, reducing downtime by up to 40% while optimizing resource allocation. Working with a patent attorney, I filed our first patent application with myself listed as the primary inventor. This would later prove to be one of the most important decisions of my life, though I had no way of knowing it at the time. Our growth attracted attention, and not all of it welcome. During a funding round to fuel expansion, my father unexpectedly expressed interest in investing and joining our board of directors. "You have proven this is not just a flash in the pan," he said when he called to discuss terms. "I think it is time I lend my business experience to help take you to the next level." I had mixed feelings. Part of me craved his approval and involvement, while another part feared his controlling nature. After discussing it with Sophia, who had become my fiancé by this point, I agreed to accept his investment and board position, hoping this might finally bridge the gap between us. Around the same time, Thomas graduated from business school with mediocre grades but endless praise from my father. Despite having no relevant experience in technology or manufacturing, my father immediately began pushing for Thomas to join TechVantage in a senior role. He has fresh ideas from business school, my father argued during a family dinner. He should come in as vice president of business development. He has the Velasquez charm that, frankly, you lack, Ramiro. Against my better judgment and Sophia's whispered warnings, I reluctantly agreed to give Thomas a chance, creating a position for him that I hoped would limit his ability to cause damage while giving him room to potentially contribute. From the beginning, Thomas treated the job as an entitlement rather than a responsibility. He would show up late, leave early, and spend lavishly on client entertainment, with little to show for it. He dressed impeccably in suits that cost more than some of my developers made in a month, and he drove a new BMW that he parked prominently in front of our building. 6 months into his tenure, Thomas nearly cost us our relationship with Midwest Manufacturing, our second largest client at the time. During a meeting that I was unable to attend due to a conflict, he promised their executive team delivery timelines that were physically impossible to meet, and features our system could not support without months of development. I learned about it when the client's CTO called me directly, concerned about commitments that contradicted everything I had told them about our product roadmap. I spent the entire weekend with Darius and 2 other developers creating a custom solution that would partially address their needs while buying us time to properly implement the rest. At the next board meeting, my father praised Thomas for closing the deal and expanding our footprint at Midwest. When I tried to explain what had actually happened, my father cut me off. Results matter more than methods, Ramiro. The client is happy, and we have increased our contract value. You could learn something from your brother's business acumen. That night, I had my first serious argument with my father about Thomas's role in the company. He is undermining everything we have built, I told him. He makes promises we cannot keep, spends money we do not have, and treats the business like his personal playground. You were just jealous because he naturally connects with people in ways you never could. My father shot back. Not everything is about code and algorithms. Business is about relationships, and Thomas builds relationships. When I recounted the conversation to Sophia that night, she suggested I start documenting everything. Your father and brother are rewriting history, she said. Make sure you have records of what actually happens. Family gatherings became increasingly tense. My mother, always the peacekeeper, would anxiously hover between conversations, trying to smooth ruffled feathers, and change subjects when business came up. James, who had wisely chosen to pursue a career in law far from the family dynamics, would watch with a knowing expression, but offer little support beyond the occasional sympathetic glance. Despite the challenges with Thomas, the company continued to thrive. I focused my energy on mentoring and developing a core team of talented employees who became fiercely loyal. We pushed boundaries with our technology, and I was honored with the industry's Innovator of the Year award for our work on predictive maintenance algorithms. The night of the award ceremony, Thomas's jealousy was palpable. "Nice trophy," he said at the after-party, champagne glass in hand. "Too bad it does not come with social skills." Later that week, I overheard my father telling Thomas that we needed to find him more significant responsibilities that would better showcase his leadership potential. When I rounded the corner and entered the room, they abruptly changed the subject. That evening, I mentioned the interaction to Sophia, who had become my wife earlier that year. "They are plotting something," she said, her brow furrowed with concern. "Your father has never accepted that this is your company, your vision. In his mind, everything successful should ultimately belong to Thomas. You are being paranoid," I said, though a seed of doubt had been planted. My father might favor Thomas, but he would not undermine a successful company just to put him in charge. Sophia gave me a sad smile. I hope you are right, but start preparing as if I am. By our 5th year, TechVantage had grown to 75 employees with annual revenue of $25 million. We had become the industry leader in manufacturing optimization software, with our products deployed in factories across North America and beginning to penetrate European and Asian markets. Our revolutionary smart manufacture platform integrated everything from supply chain management to quality control in one seamless system, dramatically reducing costs for our clients while improving output. Industry analysts were calling it a paradigm shift in manufacturing technology. With offices now in Chicago, Detroit, and Pittsburgh, I found myself traveling constantly, pitching to new clients and overseeing implementations. Despite my concerns, Thomas had been promoted to Chief Marketing Officer at my father's insistence, though his actual contributions remained minimal. During a quarterly board meeting, I began to notice that my father was excluding me from certain discussions. Twice I walked into rooms where he was huddled with Thomas and other board members, only to have conversations awkwardly shift when I appeared. More concerning was Thomas's habit of taking credit for my innovations in press interviews. In a profile piece for Technology Today, he described our core scheduling algorithm as a concept I brought to the team after recognizing inefficiencies in traditional approaches, despite having no involvement in its development. When I confronted him privately, he shrugged it off. It is just PR. Ramiro. No one cares who actually wrote the code. They want a face and a story. And let us be honest, I am better at that part than you. After 6 months of persistent effort, I finally secured a contract with Axiom Tech, a major aerospace manufacturer we had been pursuing since our early days. The deal, worth $12 million over 3 years, was a personal triumph and would open doors throughout the aerospace sector. At the next board meeting, I prepared to present the details of the agreement and our implementation strategy. When I arrived, Thomas was already standing at the head of the table with a PowerPoint presentation titled Axiom Tech Initiative, A New Direction. For the next 30 minutes, I watched in stunned silence as Thomas presented my work as if it were his own initiative, even using phrases from my proposal verbatim. When he finished, my father was the first to applaud. "This is exactly the kind of leadership vision we need," he said, beaming at Thomas. "Taking us into aerospace shows real strategic thinking." When I finally found my voice and attempted to clarify my role in securing the contract, my father cut me off. "Let us not get bogged down in who did what. This is a team win. Though Thomas, your presentation was exceptional." The stress began taking a physical toll. I developed insomnia, often finding myself awake at 3 in the morning reviewing code or strategizing how to protect the company from my own brother's incompetence. Sophia urged me to see a doctor when she noticed I had lost 15 pounds in 2 months. During a rare Sunday visit to my parents' home, my mother pulled me aside while Thomas and my father watched a football game. "I know what is happening at the company," she said quietly, her eyes sad. "Your father has always struggled with favoritism. It was the same with his brothers in the old country. Then why do you not say something?" I asked, the hurt of decades evident in my voice. She squeezed my hand. "I have, many times. But your father is a stubborn man who believes he is doing what is best. Please, be patient with him. Eventually, he will see the truth." But patience was becoming increasingly difficult as our company continued to grow. We secured 5 new patents for innovations in machine learning applied to manufacturing processes, technologies that would become the most valuable assets in our portfolio. Our company valuation hit $40 million after a major investment round, with industry analysts predicting we could reach $100 million within 2 years. As our profile rose, Thomas became more aggressive in attempting to change our product direction without consulting our engineering team. During a demonstration to a potential major client, the prototype he insisted on showing failed spectacularly because he had demanded features that our developers had repeatedly explained were not ready. The confrontation afterward was ugly. "You embarrassed me in front of global industries on purpose," Thomas shouted in the conference room, heedless of the employees who could hear through the glass walls. "The engineering team told you 3 times that module was not ready for demonstration," I replied, struggling to keep my voice calm. "I have the emails to prove it." When the matter was escalated to my father, he sided with Thomas, despite the clear documentation. "Ramiro, you need to be more flexible with the product roadmap," he said. "Thomas has his finger on the pulse of what clients want. Your team needs to deliver on his promises." Several of my most loyal executives began expressing concerns about Thomas's growing influence. My CTO, Lisa Huang, who had been with me since year 2, was blunt in her assessment. "Your brother is steering us toward disaster," she told me during a private lunch. "Half the features he promises would require us to completely rebuild our architecture, and the other half defy the laws of physics. The engineers are getting demoralized, having their expertise questioned by someone who thinks the cloud is just something in the sky." Sophia, always my most trusted advisor, suggested I consult with an independent lawyer to review my position in the company. "The way things are going," she said, "you need to understand your legal standing. If the situation deteriorates further," the lawyer discovered concerning loopholes in my employment agreement regarding intellectual property. While the patents were properly assigned, there were ambiguities about future developments and my ongoing access to them if I ever left the company. Working with a specialized patent attorney, I quietly updated agreements and documentation to better protect my personal interests, ensuring that my role as primary inventor was indisputably established. One evening, working late at the office, I overheard a conversation between my father and Thomas in the boardroom. I had not realized they were still in the building, and they clearly did not know I was there. "The transition plan is coming together," my father was saying. "We just need to time it right. Ramiro has built a solid foundation, but to get to the next level, we need your leadership style. Do you think he will accept being pushed to the side?" Thomas asked. There was a pause before my father responded. "He will not have a choice." I stood frozen outside the door, a stack of reports clutched in my suddenly numb fingers. The betrayal I had feared was being planned in explicit terms. My own father and brother were conspiring to push me out of the company I had built from nothing. The day everything changed began like any other. Our company had just been valued at $50 million after 7 years of relentless work. I had been pulling 18-hour days finalizing our new AI module, a groundbreaking addition to our platform that would cement our industry leadership for years to come. That morning, I had approved plans for a company-wide celebration of our 7th anniversary, complete with bonuses for the entire team. Despite the ongoing tension with Thomas and my father, I remained committed to the company and our employees who had become like family. The calendar notification for an emergency board meeting appeared in my inbox at 11:27 that morning. I was surprised since I had not been consulted about the need for such a meeting, but I assumed it related to a potential acquisition we had been discussing, or perhaps a new investment opportunity. When I walked into the boardroom at 2 o'clock, the first thing I noticed was Thomas sitting in my chair at the head of the table. My father sat to his right, with the other board members arranged around the table. All conversations stopped when I entered, and several board members suddenly became very interested in their notepads. "What is going on?" I asked, still standing near the doorway. "And why is Thomas in my seat?" My father cleared his throat and straightened his tie, a habit I had long associated with his most calculated business moves. "Ramiro, we have been discussing the future of TechVantage, and we have made an important decision for the next phase of growth." The room seemed to blur around the edges as my father continued. "To take us to 100 million, Thomas will be taking over as CEO, effective immediately. You will transition to Chief Technology Officer, focusing on what you do best, while Thomas handles the business leadership. What seared into my memory was not just the words, but the smile my father and Thomas exchanged after the announcement. It was a smile of triumph, of a plan, long in the making, finally coming to fruition. In that moment, I understood that they had been working toward this betrayal for years. "This is my company," I said, my voice sounding distant, even to my own ears. "I built it from nothing when everyone, including you, said it would fail, and you have done an admirable job getting us to this point," my father replied with rehearsed magnanimity. "But to reach the next level, we need Thomas's leadership vision, while you focus on technology. It is the perfect partnership of your different strengths." I looked around the table at the board members, people I had personally brought on for their expertise and whom I had considered allies. None would meet my eyes, a clear indication they had been briefed before the meeting and had already given their approval. Thomas was practically glowing with smug satisfaction. He had prepared an acceptance speech, which he launched into without any acknowledgement of the bomb that had just been dropped on my life. "I am honored to take on this responsibility," he began, as if he were receiving an award, rather than stealing my company. I do not remember leaving the room. The next clear memory I have is sitting in my car in the parking garage, knuckles white on the steering wheel, unable to process what had just happened. I drove aimlessly for hours, my phone buzzing constantly with messages I could not bring myself to read. Eventually, I called Sophia. "They did it," was all I could say. When she answered, "They took my company." That night, in the home office Sophia had helped me design when we bought our house, I finally broke down. 7 years of sacrifice, of missed holidays and weekends, of stress and sleepless nights. Also, my father could hand my success to Thomas on a silver platter. Sophia's anger burned even hotter than mine. "They cannot get away with this," she said, pacing the room while I sat staring at nothing. "Everything valuable in that company exists because of you." My mother called late that evening. "I just heard," she said, her voice thick with tears. I tried to talk him out of it, but he would not listen. "I am so sorry, Ramiro. You knew this was coming?" I asked, a fresh wave of betrayal washing over me. Her silence was answer enough. "I thought he would change his mind when he saw how successful you have made the company," she finally said. "I never thought he would actually go through with it." I spent that night reading through old journals and emails, tracing the pattern of my father's favoritism and Thomas's entitlement through the years. How had I been so blind? The signs had been there all along, from the moment Thomas joined the company, perhaps even before that. In every childhood sports game my father missed while never missing Thomas's. In every academic achievement that was acknowledged with distracted congratulations, while Thomas received lavish praise for mediocre accomplishments. By dawn, I had reviewed every legal document related to the company, from the original incorporation papers to the most recent patent filings. The picture that emerged was both devastating and clarifying. While they could take my title, they could not take the fundamental value I had created. The company's worth was built on my innovations, my client relationships, and the loyalty of the team I had assembled. As the sun rose over Chicago, a new resolve crystallized within me. "I built it once," I told Sophia as she brought me coffee. "I can build it again." My first call was to Veronica Sawyer, a tough corporate attorney who specialized in founder disputes. Her advice was direct and strategic. "They can legally change your role as CEO if the board votes for it," she confirmed after reviewing our corporate structure. "But the patents and client relationships are another matter. You need to understand exactly what you can take with you and what has to stay." Over the next several days, we discovered that while the CEO role could indeed be taken from me through proper board procedures, there were significant protections for my intellectual property. The patents were structured with me as the primary inventor, with licenses granted to the company under specific conditions. Many of those conditions included clauses about my continued involvement in the company's leadership. More importantly, there was nothing preventing key employees from resigning if they chose to, and no non-compete clauses that would prevent me from starting a new venture in the same industry, a critical oversight in our early legal work that now seemed providential. The plan began to take shape. I would leave, but I would not leave empty-handed. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. I had created TechVantage from nothing once. I could, and would, do it again. For 2 agonizing weeks after the betrayal, I maintained a facade of reluctant acceptance while methodically planning my response. Each morning, I would arrive at work, nod stiffly to Thomas in what had been my office, and retreat to my new, smaller space with the title CTO freshly painted on the door. Behind this compliant exterior, however, I was executing a carefully orchestrated strategy. My first priority was assessing which executives would remain loyal to me versus those who would align with Thomas and my father. I scheduled private meetings with 7 key executives under the guise of discussing the transition. Lisa Huang, my brilliant CTO who had been demoted to a director role under me, did not even let me finish my careful preamble. "When are we leaving? And what are we building next?" she asked bluntly, closing my office door. "Because there is no way in hell. I am working for your brother longer than absolutely necessary." Similar sentiments were expressed by 5 other executives, including our CFO, Martin Lawson, who had watched with mounting alarm, as Thomas had misrepresented our financials to make his contributions seem more significant than they were. Only our VP of sales seemed genuinely torn, concerned about the relationships he had built with clients, but equally concerned about the company's new direction. "Give me a few days to think about it," he requested, which I respected. Next, I arranged meetings with our 5 largest clients under the pretense of reassuring them about the leadership change. What I actually wanted to gauge was their loyalty to me personally versus the company as an entity. The response was unanimous and encouraging. Marcus Henderson, CEO of Axiom Tech, was particularly direct. "We signed with TechVantage because of you, Ramiro," he told me over lunch. "Your brother may have a fancy title now, but the one time I met him, he could not answer basic questions about how your system actually works. If you go elsewhere, we would certainly be interested in following." With client loyalty confirmed, I turned my attention to our intellectual property. Working nights and weekends with Veronica and a specialized IP attorney, I conducted a detailed review of all patents, code bases, and proprietary algorithms. The news was better than I had dared hope. While the existing patents were properly assigned to the company, my role as primary inventor gave me significant leverage. More importantly, the AI module I had been developing, potentially our most valuable asset, was still in a legal gray area that we could exploit. Sophia, who had taken a leave of absence from her executive role at her own company to help me, set up a shell company structure that would allow us to move quickly once we were ready to launch. Through her industry connections, she also secured a commitment for $10 million in silent backing from Harold Freeman, a venture capitalist who had always been impressed with my work and, coincidentally, had once been burned in a business deal with my father. "Eduardo Velasquez screwed me over 15 years ago," Harold said when we met discreetly at his lake house outside the city. "The thought of funding his son to compete against him is just too delicious to pass up." While I laid this groundwork, Thomas and my father interpreted my quiet demeanor as defeat. Thomas began making sweeping changes to our product roadmap, dismissing concerns from the engineering team about feasibility and timelines. My father attempted a consolation conversation over lunch that only revealed the true extent of his character failings. "You should be grateful, Ramiro," he said between bites of his overpriced steak. "Most founders get pushed out with nothing. At least you still have a senior position and your equity. Many venture capitalists would have been far less generous." "Generous?" I repeated, struggling to keep my voice level. "You took the company I built and handed it to Thomas, who has contributed nothing of value since the day he arrived. My father's expression hardened. That is exactly the attitude that made this change necessary. You have never appreciated your brother's gifts. He has vision, charisma, leadership, things you lack. Together, you two could be unstoppable. If you would just accept your proper role. I excused myself before dessert, claiming a meeting I could not miss. In reality, I needed to leave before I said something that would tip my hand. Over the next week, I met individually with each board member, ostensibly to discuss my new role and ensure a smooth transition. What I was actually doing was documenting their complicity in the coup, while assessing whether any might be allies in the future. While none openly admitted wrongdoing, several expressed uncomfortable reservations about how the change had been handled. 1. A venture capitalist named Sandra Whitmore pulled me aside after our meeting. For what it is worth, I argued against doing this now, and in this way, she said quietly. Your father and brother presented it as a fait accompli, with the votes already secured. I am sorry, Ramiro. You deserved better. With my intelligence gathering complete, I moved to the final phase of preparation. I secured office space in a converted warehouse on the opposite side of Chicago. Paid 6 months in advance through our shell company. I created a comprehensive transition plan for the team members who would be coming with me, ensuring everyone understood their roles and the risks involved. I also conducted a careful inventory of all my personal intellectual contributions that were not explicitly covered in existing agreements. This included notebooks, drafts, concept documents, and thousands of lines of code I had written on my personal time that had never been formally integrated into company products. In my final one-on-one meetings with the 15 key team members who had agreed to join me, I was careful never to explicitly ask them to leave TechVantage or to take anything proprietary. Instead, I simply confirmed when they would be ready for a new opportunity and what skills they would bring to a theoretical new venture. The night before what we now called Execution Day, I stayed late at the office, backing up all my personal files and wiping my company devices of anything not strictly related to current projects. I left behind detailed documentation on all ongoing work, determined that while I would take my future, I would not sabotage the company's existing commitments. Sophia and I had a quiet dinner at home that evening, both too tense to eat much. Are you sure about this? She asked, reaching across the table to take my hand. Once we do this, there is no going back. I have never been more sure of anything, I replied. They left me no choice. The next morning, I arrived at the office an hour earlier than usual. I placed my detailed resignation letter on my father's desk, along with a flash drive containing transition documentation for all my projects. The letter was coldly professional, citing irreconcilable differences in vision and leadership philosophy as my reason for departure. At exactly 9 o'clock, as we had planned, I sent a brief email to Thomas, my father, and the board, announcing my resignation, effective immediately. Simultaneously, coordinated announcements went out to our key clients explaining my departure and providing my personal contact information for future discussions. At 9:05, Lisa Huang, Martin Lawson, and 5 department heads all submitted their resignations. By 9:15, 23 other employees from engineering, product development, and client services had done the same. At 9:30, our legal team delivered formal notices regarding the termination of certain patent licensing agreements based on clauses triggered by my removal as CEO, effective in 30 days. I walked out of the building carrying only a small box of personal items, passing shocked employees huddled in whispered conversations. As I reached the lobby, I saw Thomas running toward the elevator, his face flushed with panic. Our eyes met briefly before the doors closed between us. My phone rang before I reached my car. It was my father. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice shaking with rage. "Exactly what you taught me," I replied calmly. I put myself first. The first days of New Edge Technologies were both exhilarating and terrifying. Our core team of 12 former TechVantage executives worked elbow to elbow in our hastily furnished warehouse space, using folding tables and chairs borrowed from Sophia's church while proper furniture was on order. Despite the makeshift accommodations, morale was extraordinarily high. There was an energy in the room that reminded me of TechVantage's earliest days, but with the significant advantage of an experienced team and clear vision from day one. It is like all the good parts of a startup, without the blind panic of not knowing what we are doing, Lisa commented, as we worked late into the night, setting up our development environment. Within the first 2 weeks, all 5 of our major targeted clients had signed letters of intent to work with New Edge once their existing contracts with TechVantage allowed. Marcus from Axiom Tech had been particularly supportive, even offering to connect us with his network of aerospace manufacturers. The industry fallout was immediate and severe. TechVantage's stock value dropped 60% in a single day when news broke of the mass exodus of key personnel. Technology blogs and business publications ran headlines like TechVantage implodes, founder takes brain trust to new venture, and Velasquez family drama destroys $50 million company. A particularly satisfying moment came when an analyst on Bloomberg described Thomas as a figurehead CEO with no technical background suddenly left in charge of a complex technology company with no one who understands the product. The footage of Thomas's deer-in-headlights expression when asked about the core functionality of their platform during an emergency investor call went viral in tech circles. My father made increasingly desperate attempts to salvage client relationships, personally visiting several key accounts. According to our contacts, these meetings went poorly, with my father unable to answer technical questions and making promises that the depleted engineering team could not possibly fulfill. Thomas, meanwhile, demonstrated a complete inability to understand the technology that had been the foundation of our success. In one catastrophic all-hands meeting, he allegedly referred to our machine learning algorithms as the computer magic stuff Ramiro used to do, and suggested they could hire some coding guys to recreate it. During our first month of operation, 3 more major clients terminated their contracts with TechVantage, citing concerns about the company's ability to support their implementations without the original development team. 2 of them immediately reached out to us. The board members who had supported my ouster now found themselves in a nightmare scenario of their own making. Several called me directly, first with veiled threats of litigation, then with increasingly transparent attempts at reconciliation. Perhaps we were too hasty, Sandra Whitmore said in a voicemail. I think we should discuss how to resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. I did not return these calls. Instead, I focused entirely on building New Edge into what TechVantage should have been all along. A company that valued innovation, recognized contribution, and operated with integrity. With Veronica's guidance, we secured $15 million in proper funding within 30 days, allowing us to lease permanent office space and begin aggressive hiring. We specifically targeted the best remaining talent at TechVantage, ultimately bringing over 35 additional employees within the first 2 months. We accelerated development of our next-generation platform, leveraging all the lessons and insights I had gained over the years, but never been able to fully implement due to Thomas's constant interference. Without the burden of legacy systems and compromised architecture, we made rapid progress. As I had anticipated, my father attempted to challenge us legally, filing suits alleging intellectual property theft and violation of non-compete agreements. These efforts failed spectacularly when our legal team demonstrated that the relevant agreements either did not exist or contained the very loopholes Veronica had identified in our planning phase. The judge presiding over the main case was particularly unimpressed with my father's arguments. It appears to me, he noted in his ruling, that Mr. Velasquez the younger simply took his considerable talents elsewhere when the company changed leadership, as is his right in our free market system. The fact that those talents were more valuable than the company anticipated is not a legal matter, but a business lesson. Thomas, floundering in his role as CEO, gave a disastrous interview to Technology Today, in which he blamed disloyal employees and my brother's sabotage for the company's troubles. While accepting no personal responsibility, the publication ran the piece with the brutal headline, TechVantage CEO points fingers as company crumbles. By the 6-month mark, TechVantage's valuation had plummeted to $15 million, less than a third of its peak value. The board finally took action, removing Thomas as CEO in a last-ditch effort to salvage what remained of the company. They brought in an experienced industry executive as interim leader, but the damage had been done. Meanwhile, NewEdge was thriving. Our first major product launch exceeded all expectations, with industry reviewers praising our innovative approach and seamless integration capabilities. We won Disruption of the Year at the annual Technology Awards, a bittersweet moment as I accepted the same trophy I had once received for TechVantage. Former employees continued to reach out, asking to join our team. We hired selectively, focusing on those who brought unique skills and shared our values. Within 9 months, NewEdge reached a valuation of $30 million, with a clear path to surpassing TechVantage's peak value within our first 2 years. The most satisfying validation came in an unexpected form. Late one evening, I received a voicemail from my father. His voice sounded older, tired. "I underestimated you," he said simply. "I was wrong. Thomas has been removed as CEO. The company is failing. I just thought you should know." There was a long pause before he added, "Congratulations on your success," and hung up. I played the message for Sophia that night. "Is it wrong that I feel a sense of justice?" I asked her as we sat on our back porch, watching the sunset. "No," she replied, squeezing my hand. "You earned this moment. Just do not let it define you going forward." She was right, as usual. While the vindication was sweet, I was already looking toward the future, toward building something meaningful, rather than simply proving my father wrong. NewEdge would be defined by what we created, not by the circumstances of our origin. 3 years after walking out of TechVantage, with nothing but a small box of personal items, I stood on a stage, accepting the Industry Pioneer Award as CEO of NewEdge Technologies, now valued at $120 million, with 200 employees across offices in 5 cities. The contrast with TechVantage could not have been more stark. The company my father and brother had thought they could run without me had been acquired by a competitor for just $8 million. Essentially the value of their remaining client contracts and office equipment. My father had been forced into early retirement when his construction business failed shortly after, apparently suffering from similar management issues. As I looked out at the audience filled with NewEdge employees, I reflected on how differently I had structured this company. From day one, we established a culture of transparency and recognition, where contributions were acknowledged and rewarded, regardless of title or tenure. We implemented profit sharing for all employees and created special equity pools for key innovators. The journey had not been without personal complications. 6 months after our departure, Thomas reached out to me through our mother, asking to meet. I initially refused, but Sophia encouraged me to hear him out. "You do not have to forgive him," she said, "but closure might help you move forward completely." We met at a neutral coffee shop on a Sunday afternoon. Thomas looked different, humbled. The designer suits and perfect hair were gone, replaced by casual clothes and dark circles under his eyes. "I messed up," he said after an awkward greeting. "I thought running a company was about looking the part and making grand statements. I had no idea what you actually did every day until I tried to do it without you." Over the next hour, he shared his experience of watching everything collapse, of facing angry clients and confused employees with no answers to give them. He described the moment he realized he was completely out of his depth and the shame of being removed from the position he had coveted. "Dad set me up to fail," he said, staring into his coffee. "He convinced me I deserved your job, that I could do it better than you. He never prepared me for what it actually entailed." While one conversation could not heal years of rivalry and betrayal, it was the beginning of a cautious reconciliation. Over the following months, Thomas and I established a new relationship based on honesty rather than competition. He eventually found his own path in sales for a non-competing industry, where his natural charisma served him well in a role properly matched to his abilities. My relationship with my father took longer to address. After his businesses failed, he went through a period of depression that my mother said changed him profoundly. A health scare, a minor heart attack at age 67, finally prompted him to reach out. We met at my parents' home, sitting in the backyard where he had once dismissed my early business ideas. The conversation was difficult, but necessary. "I always favored Thomas because he reminded me of myself," my father admitted. "I could understand him. You were always a mystery to me with your computers and algorithms. I convinced myself that meant you needed less from me, that you would be fine on your own." "That is not how it works, Dad," I said, surprised by the emotion in my voice. "Children need support, regardless of whether you understand their interests." He nodded slowly. "I know that now. Watching you build something so successful twice, something I could never have created, made me realize how wrong I was. I was jealous, so I tried to control what I did not understand by putting Thomas in charge. While that conversation did not instantly heal our relationship, it opened a door to a new kind of understanding. My father would never be the champion I had once craved, but we found a way to acknowledge each other's strengths and establish boundaries that allowed for a respectful relationship. The experience of losing and rebuilding my company transformed more than just my professional life. Through therapy, I processed the family trauma that had driven me to seek validation through achievement. Sophia and I welcomed our first child, a daughter named Elena, and I became determined to break the cycle of favoritism that had damaged my own family. Success means nothing if you lose yourself in the process, I often told my leadership team. This philosophy informed every aspect of how we built New Edge. We created a unique patent trust, ensuring that inventors always maintained connection to and benefit from their innovations, regardless of their employment status. We established a mentorship program specifically targeting young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, offering guidance and resources I wished I had had when starting out. Most importantly, we built a company culture that valued people as humans first and assets second. When an employee's child was diagnosed with a serious illness, we not only covered all medical expenses not addressed by insurance, but also created a flexible work arrangement that allowed the parent to be present for treatments without sacrificing their career progression. As New Edge continued to grow and thrive, I found the greatest satisfaction not in our financial success, but in the community we had created. Former TechVantage employees who had joined us often commented on the difference in atmosphere. At TechVantage, I always felt like a replaceable cog. One developer told me at a company picnic, "Here, I feel like my ideas matter, like I am building something meaningful, alongside people who care about each other." The journey from betrayal to rebuilding taught me lessons about business and life that no university or mentor could have provided. I learned that true success is not measured in dollars, but in impact, both on the world and on the people around you. I discovered that sometimes losing everything is the only way to realize what truly matters. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the greatest gift is someone believing in you, even if that someone has to be yourself. When my own father could not see my value, I had to become my own strongest advocate. That self-belief, more than any technology or business strategy, was what ultimately allowed me to rebuild after betrayal. For anyone watching who has ever felt overlooked or undervalued, especially by those who should support you most. Remember that your worth is not determined by others' ability to see it. Sometimes the family we create through shared purpose and mutual respect is stronger than the one we are born into. Have you ever had to walk away from something you built because others failed to value your contribution? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more honest conversations about business, family, and finding your own path to success. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that sometimes the best revenge is not just success, but building something better than what you lost.